We have been seeing this like in today's generation about like social media coming up, Instagram, Twitter. Like me being into like growing up in this like whole world social media, like attention spans have like gone drastically down due to like like social media. So how, like let's dive deeper into this with this question that like how do you think social media is like really affecting teenagers, and how we can like not see it as a distraction and focus in our work.
So this is a challenge for the 21st century, no doubt, because children are now being born and handed a phone by the time they're 2 years old because their parents are busy, and so it's easier to keep the child entertained by just switching on YouTube. The brains of a growing infant or a growing child will adapt to whatever environment they grow up in. And so when they grow up scrolling through YouTube and Instagram, then that becomes their norm, that becomes their baseline. And so when you don't get it, it will feel like something is wrong. And so at a very fundamental level, what you're doing is you're training an entire generation of children to believe that this is the norm. Now, whether that is correct or not is a different conversation. Maybe it's true, maybe it is the norm. And in the next 100 years, of course, everybody will have access to the internet all the time. But we need to ask ourselves as a society, what kind of life do we want our children to have? And that's the danger, that we are not asking ourselves that.
Yeah, like with me is like with Instagram, like I have really limited down it to 1 hour a day. Like
Hmm.
it like every time I'm free, my hand goes towards Instagram. Like I have set timer for myself.
Yeah.
But like how do you think like we should get over such kind of addictions like social media, like or sort of porn or any kind of addiction like smoking, like a basic if you had to describe to a 5 year old, because since due to pandemic everything is evolved and everyone needs a phone, it's kind of a necessity.
Yeah.
So like how would you like reduce that kind of addiction?
Step one is to admit that it's an addiction. Until that happens, nothing else will happen. So you have to admit that, yes, this is a problem. Step two is to create barriers between you and the substance. So it cannot be so easy for you to just reach out and get it. So either put a password or take it off your screen or uninstall it and install it when you want to. Just add one or two layers of difficulty so that there is some kind of effort
Like a
required.
friction, like what
Some friction.
James Clear says. Yeah.
Yes, some kind of friction. And third is to find alternatives. Like instead of this, what else will you do? So that you find other things that you're as interested in and you're building other habits and replacing one habit for the other. That makes it a lot easier. Instead of just saying, I don't want to do it, you need to figure out what else will you do instead. So that's like a good system to get over an addiction.
Okay. So, like since we are talking about social medias only, like one of the topics, like me personally face as a content creator is that like a lot of worse things happen. Like people like commenting worse things about us, like you're not doing this or that. And a normal person also who doesn't create content, some or the other will face criticisms or bad comments on the internet. So like how to get over that negativism, and how does a brain like react when we like receive that comments, not only from social media but like in real life.
So we are evolved to live in societies that support us. So we have evolved to find people who like us and we will spend more and more time with those people. The problem is that social media has somehow changed the entire environment where it is the equivalent of you going and standing in the middle of a crowded park and just yelling out your opinions and then random people can come and say that I don't agree with you, and then you'll feel bad about it. So it's literally any stranger out there in the world could be reading your tweet, could be reading your post, seeing your videos. So we need to understand that the parameters have changed. So your old friend coming and telling you that he or she doesn't like you is different from some stranger coming and telling you that they don't like you. So we cannot give both of those things the same importance. So we need to understand that a random stranger, especially an anonymous stranger on the internet who don't have any credibility, their words has to be taken at a different level as opposed to somebody that you know, somebody whose words have more weight. So this is a very important thing for all of us to learn, that not every comment is equally valuable. And so once you start distinguishing a valuable comment from a non-valuable comment, you will start growing as a person, and that could be even a positive thing. So this is the thing: when a random stranger says something nice about you, you will believe it, but the truth is that you shouldn't believe that also, because it is equally invaluable.
Like
They
how?
don't
Like
know
can you
you.
explain it?
Like for example, some random person, anonymous person, oh, zero followers, who just made an account, they coming and telling you that, oh, you are so incredible, you've changed my life. You need to take that as with a pinch of salt as well, because we don't know who that is. Of course you're glad that you are able to help somebody, but you shouldn't get too high up on yourself, just like you shouldn't get too low on yourself when a random stranger comes and says that you are useless and what you're saying is wrong. So you need to find that balance.
Another thing that I wanted to ask you about, like the pressure like we teenagers has to face due to like studies, expectations, and like other lots of pressure,
Yeah.
exams. Like, how do you think like a teenager can tackle that pressure and like get in a better mind space?
Yeah. So this is definitely a challenge because more and more people are like seeing themselves as content creators, but then we don't really know what it takes, because there's no specific classes, there's nothing to read. It's just a matter of going out there, putting yourself out there, creating stuff, and then opening yourself up to the response of the whole world. So imagine any other skill. Traditionally, if a child wants to learn guitar, okay, he or she will pick up a guitar, start learning, play in front of their parents, play in front of their friends, play in their class, teachers, students, school, and then gradually they will go on getting better and better. Today, a content creator, directly first reel of their life they're putting up on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and the whole world can see it. So you are technically performing for the whole world on your first try. So that can go very well or very badly. And nobody's prepared for that. And that's the challenge that the modern generation has to face, because they are constantly under scrutiny by the whole world. And so they will get all sorts of feedback. They are not going to get a gradual learning curve, they are directly thrown into the mix. So they need to understand that it's not the same as it was 50 years ago.
Right. Like, so what can like schools do to like help out the children who are under immense pressure and stress?
Schools can actually start talking about social media. They should, in fact, talk about the importance of having an online presence, the risks of having an online presence. What are we supposed to be doing with this? Because more and more, your job opportunities and your networking, everything is happening online. And a school is supposed to train a student to be prepared for life, real life. So there are a lot of things that a school doesn't teach. like how to open a bank account, how to invest your money, how to make sure that all your paperwork is in order, how to create content, should you create content, what is the importance of art in everyday life, what is the importance of sports in everyday life. These are things that school doesn't teach you and life teaches you, and these are some of the most important lessons, far more important than trigonometry. But schools tend to teach that because it has been traditionally एक के बाद एक हर साल वही सिखाते जा रहे हैं. But that needs to change, and so people like you will change that, right?
Yeah, right. Like maybe through content we can like spread
So
awareness, and like everyone are on social media, so वो connection जल्दी से build up होता है.
the first thing I would teach is for everybody to start thinking about their own mental health as a consequence of neural networks. People think that our emotions and our reactions just happen, but they don't. You are a consequence of all the habits that you have learned throughout your life. And so if you start thinking about the different networks that are coming together to create those responses, you are now able to form a visualization. You're able to visualize how your emotions are formed and why are they formed. Once you know that, you are able to change the way that you feel so much more easily, right? So understanding why and understanding what is happening in your brain is extremely important. For me, that is the first foundation. The second thing I would teach is what are the things that you can do beforehand to improve your reserve of mental strength, to improve your resilience, because everything comes down to resilience. Trauma or difficult situations can happen to everybody. It does happen to everybody. But different people react differently to the same kind of stress. Why is that? Because some people are better trained at handling trauma than others. That does not mean that somebody is invincible. Everybody has an upper limit. And so to identify what is your limit, to make sure that you don't cross it too much, but at the same time, you do keep crossing it a little bit because that's how you grow. So that is something that everybody needs to understand how to build resilience. So these are two lessons that I would want everyone, especially every child, to know. So, yeah, that's absolutely correct. Intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, it's called as locus of motivation. That what is driving you? Are you being pulled or are you pushing yourself? So most of us are being pulled by something. So you are sitting in a room, your phone will ring, and suddenly your attention will turn to your phone, and now the phone is pulling you. Your motivation is external. Your friend says that, Are, I am going to the gym. Now suddenly you also want to go to the gym because your friend is going. So those are external motivation. You see a picture of Cristiano Ronaldo working out and you feel, Are, I also want six pack abs. So you chase after that. You see somebody driving a BMW, oh, you also want a BMW. Now you want to work towards getting a BMW. So all these are external motivators. But if you remove everything and you just look at yourself as who you are right now, and you say that suppose nobody ever sees you ever again, what do you want to do? Forget about everybody else. Nobody will ever talk to you again, for example, hypothetically. What do you want to do? What does Pranav Pawar want to do in life? Even if nobody else sees it, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? That is internal motivation. And of course, these two things go hand in hand, but you need to find out who you are at your core and what would you do even if you don't get any validation from anybody. Those are your internal motivators, and the more you spend time with your internal motivators, the easier it becomes for you to plan long term, because external motivations keep changing. Your friends will change, your colleagues will change, different people will come and say different things, so you will keep getting distracted. And if you find an external motivation that is very good for you, make sure you don't leave it. So you make sure that so for example, if you like a particular speaker, a motivational speaker, then you follow them, you listen to them every day because that's your external motivator, but it works for you. Which is why religion is the ultimate external motivator, because it is always there and it has built an entire system to motivate you.
Yeah, last two questions like of this
Yeah.
podcast, like because like you
I
have a
agree.
little limited time. Like how would you talk about sleep and its importance? Because like we mobiles we have got so much into this work life that like our work never ends, और रोज नाइट में वो काम होने के बाद वो एंडलेस मोबाइल पे स्क्रोलिंग चलता रहता है, and that blue like the mobile lights don't let us sleep and affects our sleep. So how would you tell like the
Correct.
importance of sleep and how we should improve our sleep in this today's world?
So improving sleep is, it's a journey. So it doesn't happen overnight. In order to improve sleep, you need to create the environment for good sleep. That's very, very important. It's like saying, how can you create a good meal? You can't just create a good meal when everything else is messy, when you don't have any ingredients. So you need to create the environment for good sleep, which is that the place that you're sleeping in has to be conducive. You need to avoid distractions for around 30 to 45 minutes beforehand. um, Make sure that your morning wake up schedule is fixed and your nighttime schedule is fixed, so that these are called triggers, so sleep triggers. So you have the same routine for 15 minutes before sleeping, so that your body gets into that zone of sleeping. There is something called progressive muscle relaxation, very similar to yoga's shivasana shavasana, sorry. um, and that is a way of progressively relaxing all the muscles in your body to gradually induce a state of sleep. So these are all things that a normal regular person can do. Apart from this, if you're having trouble sleeping, then there are specific tests that you can do. You can visit a sleep specialist, and there are specific tests that you can do to find out if you have some other problems like obstructive sleep apnea. And that is very important, because sometimes you can't sleep because of those problems. So I have a kind of a funnel system. So whatever I read, I take notes. I don't initially think about ye kya banega, like will this become a reel or a YouTube video or whatever. Like I'm just writing things down because I find it interesting. And then later on I sit with it and I create things from that. So when you're reading, you shouldn't think of content. You should think of it as learning. So learning and creating are two different steps. So when you're learning, don't think of what will you make this into. When you're learning, you learn. You have fun with the learning bit. Once you've learned, now you can share. Now you can tell other people. That is when you start deciding कि इसको कैसे बनाना है, इसको कैसे बताना है. What is the best way you can share this information? So for me, these two things are separate. And once you're figuring out ये कैसे बताना, you will realize that the same thing can become a YouTube video also, or a reel also, a Twitter thread, whatever you want, a blog post, whatever you want. वो तो मेनली पैंडेमिक की वजह से हुआ, क्योंकि पैंडेमिक में आई हैड सम फ्री टाइम to create content. So that's why I started making Twitter posts and then YouTube videos for medical students. And then it somehow never stopped, because even after the pandemic got over, I still continued making it because I really enjoyed the process. I enjoyed reading and sharing things that I know. So that was a lot of fun for me. One of my favorite authors is Oliver Sacks. He's also a neurologist who writes books. So he's kind of my idol. I look up to him. There is a neuroscientist named Andrew Huberman, who I personally really enjoy. He's a professor of neuroscience in Stanford University. There's another professor called David Eagleman, who has written some excellent books on neuroscience, how to make neuroscience very simple. So I would recommend that people read him as well. So one podcast I listen to is again Andrew Huberman's Huberman Lab podcast. Yeah, Huberman Lab podcast is a great one.
Yeah, that and I really appreciate the time that you gave, like from your busy schedule, and we exceeded the time that you gave. But yeah, thank you for being here on the podcast. It really means a lot. And
No problem.
yeah, thank you for
Thank
talking
you so
about
much,
all
bro.
the.
And all the best. All the best for your podcast.
Thank you.